NFL preseason week 1 is in the books, and while some teams played their starters, most of them did not. There were some performances that definitely stood out, and we're going to focus specifically on the rookie quarterbacks in today's video. But before we get too much further, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. You know what to do. Hit that little bell notification to get notified to all my videos here. Send it out to any sports fans you know, and let's help build a community here. I try to release videos at least twice a week, some fantasy focus, some sports news related focus. Let's build this community and have fun. But let's jump right into the video. Some performances are not worth mentioning, so we're not going to. It's better left unsaid. To be honest, in the first week of the preseason, most of the rookie performances were great for the quarterbacks. There are guys who are battling, not for the QB1 position, who, didn't perform very well, like Quinn Ewers or Riley Leonard. Both of them had very subpar games. But today I want to focus on the 4 guys that really are either being talked about or not talked about enough. Starting with Tyler Shough. Shough is in battle with Spencer Rattler for that QB1 spot in New Orleans. Now, New Orleans is in that interesting position where they're not expected to do a lot this season. So what they do throughout the season is almost irrelevant. Yeah, they're in the NFC South, and really any team can really win that, but the whole process has to start with quarterback. And the problem is that the Saints don't have one. Spencer Rattler is not a starting caliber quarterback. He did not look great. He hasn't played well in his time in the NFL. He was a great story in QB1, a little arrogant, sure, but ultimately, he is not going to be that guy to guide you through the hardships. He is not going to be able to carry a team at the NFL level, in my opinion. Now, with most of these rookies, I am going to say they were playing against the 2s or the 3s, but at this point, it's irrelevant. Tyler Shough has the best ability to get the Saints into a winning position. He looked great. He completed 15 passes on 22 attempts for 165 yards. He took 2 sacks, got a touchdown, threw a pick 6, and had 3 rushing yards. Not a bad day, especially for his first NFL action as kind of more of a question mark on how he was going to do in the league. Currently, the Saints situation, they do have weapons that if they have decent quarterback play, I don't see the problem with them still being able to compete. With people like Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Raheem Shaheed, they have the weapons being able to compete. It's just a matter of getting that right guy behind center. And I don't see how Shough is not that guy at this point. I understand you don't want to give a rookie that, you've got the job, it's yours, take it. I understand you've got to put this kid in live action and see what you've got, because Saints could realistically have the number 1 pick. They could be a top 5 pick, and there could be a quarterback sitting there waiting. And I don't think teams tank for quarterbacks to a degree. I can joke around about it and say that's like what they could be doing, but I don't really think they're intentionally trying to do that, because let's look at Quinn Ewers, for example. He was on the cover of the Return of College Football, the video game. He was projected to be a number 1 pick, had a terrible season, and looks terrible with the Dolphins. Granted, again, it's a preseason game, it's adjustments, it's things like that. It's not to say he can't develop, but that's why I don't think teams tank on purpose. But with that said, the Saints are in a position to get a top quarterback in next year's draft. So why not see what you have in Shough, see if he's even worth keeping. If not, it could be a Josh Rosen situation. You could ship him off. At this point, it's better to see what you've got rather than what you don't, because I don't think the Saints ownership is expecting a lot of Kellen Moore either. I don't think they're going to fire him after 1 year. I think it's time to name Shough the number 1 quarterback in New Orleans. Moving on to Cam Ward. Cam Ward might be the most underrated number 1 overall pick of all time, especially for a quarterback. I get people like, the linemen like Eric Fisher, people like that, Jadeveon Clowney, who weren't as coveted as number 1 picks because, they're not that sexy position. Cam Ward is a quarterback and a very talented one at that. If it wasn't for the Shedeur Sanders drama on draft night, not to mention the Travis Hunter trade, I think that there would have been a lot more fanfare for Cam Ward, and I think that's unfair. In training camp, people are saying he looks great. He is saying all the right things at the microphone. He's saying things that you want to hear from a number 1 overall pick and face of your franchise in the future. And I say this as a Texans fan, and I hate the Titans, but I can admit it. I like this kid. He is saying all the right things. He had a decent day. He completed 5 of 8 attempts for 67 yards. He did throw a ball that should have been picked, but it was dropped. But overall, he displayed accuracy, ball placement. He looked more like a Jaden Daniels rather than a Caleb Williams. So I don't think Cam is really going to be a bust in this situation. The problem with Cam Ward is not necessarily his talent. It's what he's working with in Tennessee. Calvin Ridley, getting older. Tyler Lockett, getting older. Van Jefferson, never been able to write home about him. So I think that's what's hindering all the hype around him. Cam's not worried about getting that QB1 spot. He's obviously gotten the job, especially with Will Levis's injury. There's no question Cam's going to be that starter, and I just think he is getting so slept on. He could really turn the Titans team around and actually make them better than what people are expecting. That's a lot to put on a rookie. It's what happened with Jaden Daniels. It's what happened with CJ Shough. There has been precedent within the last few years of players taking that step, even with subpar play from other members of their team. Cam Ward could potentially have that same situation, especially if he uses his legs, which he really didn't do a lot in Miami, but I think he could adapt in the NFL and actually start using his legs more. Either way, his first performance really impressed me. I want to see what he does next week, the week after, and week 1 before I'm going to say like, oh, this kid's for sure the answer, but I just think he's really getting slept on. What is Brian Daboll doing with Jaxson Dart? Jaxson Dart, I think, had one of the most impressive days of any of these guys. He completed 12 of 19 attempts for 154 yards, a touchdown, and 24 rushing yards on 3 attempts. He had a very good day. He didn't play with the ones, and I understand that. But where my issue comes in with Jaxson Dart is he is not even being considered for the starting role against Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is the starter and confirmed by Daboll to be the starter for the Giants. I talked about it in my Trust or Bust fantasy video. I'll link it right here. So the fact that Jackson's not even in consideration for QB1 is ridiculous. Russell Wilson started this game. He completed 6 out of 7 attempts for 28 yards. 28 yards. How are you going to feed anyone on that, Russell? How are you going to feed anyone on that budget? And that's my point. They're not going to be able to feed Malik Neighbors. They're not going to be able to feed anybody with Russell Wilson throwing 28 yards on 6 attempts. 6 attempts. 28 yards. That's it. Where Jaxson Dart, I feel like you could throw him out there because, again, the Giants are kind of in a similar situation with the Saints. Not that they don't have talent. They're not cash-strapped like the Saints, but they've got a tough schedule and people aren't expecting a lot from them. They have a very hard schedule. Their defense is going to be incredible. Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter. They all are going to be very good. So it's not the Giants' defense I'm worried about, it's their offense. Do you know how much stress would be relieved if you put Jaxson Dart in that QB1 battle? I'm not even saying making QB1 at this point, say, Russell, you're done. But at least make it a competition in camp. At least let him run the reps with the ones. Split the time with him and Russell. Let them compete. I hate when teams just name their starter automatically without making them compete. There are certain situations where it makes sense, like Cam Ward obviously is going to be QB1. It made complete sense. People like Trevor Lawrence, when he got drafted, he was obviously going to be QB1. That makes sense. I get it. But even in those situations, they usually make him go, oh yeah, they're competing. They're not even giving Jaxson the opportunity, it appears. They seem perfectly fine coasting along with Russell Wilson, which makes no sense because Daboll, I think, is in the hot seat. And if they perform terribly, I could see him getting fired. So why not put Jaxson Dart in this situation and let's see what you have in the kid? He's not going to learn anything from Russell Wilson. I'm sorry. Get Jaxson Dart in there, let him start throwing, and let's just see the Giants do better than what you're projecting. It's not that hard of a recipe. And lastly, the most talked about man this offseason, from the draft till now, it's Shedeur Sanders. I can't deny it. Shedeur had a great day. He looked fantastic. And again, like I'll say, went with the 2s, the 3s. I understand that. You can't control who you're playing against. You can only control what you are doing on the field. And Shedeur was a master and commander the other night. He completed 14 of 23 attempts for 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 19 rushing yards on 4 attempts. Not a bad day at all. Now, Shedeur got the start because both Dillon Gabriel and Kenny Pickett were hurt, and they set Joe Flacco because Joe doesn't need to play in the preseason. He's good. So this was Shedeur's real first chance at NFL action, and he did not disappoint. He looked great. With this performance, it's pushed the question as to where is Shedeur going to get reps? Where is he going to start practicing with the ones? And for some reason, the Browns depth chart is still having him as QB4. Now look, I am not on the bandwagon saying throw him in at the starting role. Again, he played with the 2s and 3s. I understand that. He should at least be competing for QB1 at this point. To be fair, we have not gotten a look at Dillon Gabriel because of his injury. Hopefully that heals up so we can see him in action this coming week. So fingers crossed on that. But somebody like Kenny Pickett, like, you know what you have with Kenny Pickett. He is not going to be a starting caliber quarterback. He is going to be a, career backup, in my opinion. Shedeur has the opportunity and the skills and the potential at this point, being so young, to become a starting quarterback in the NFL. So why not try to develop that better? Putting him back at the QB4 spot is almost criminal at this point. He comes with a lot of baggage. He comes with a lot of, swagger and things that people don't really agree with. And look, I can admit I don't agree with him showing up with an entourage to a preseason game. I can agree that Nike putting out an ad saying it's about time for a preseason game is ridiculous. But that's not to take away from what Shedeur did on the field, and he should be applauded and, rewarded for it, in my opinion. He should be starting to get some more reps. I know football players are competitive. I know that they would always look at something like, why is he getting this opportunity? But after seeing that performance, it would make sense. And especially, again, Joe Flacco doesn't need to be doing these practices as much. Yeah, he needs a few reps, but he is somebody who understands the system. He's played in it before. He's gotten you to the playoffs before. He knows what to do. He doesn't need these training camp reps. Where somebody like Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel, two guys you are trying to develop, do need these reps. So why not give the guy that outperformed what everyone was expecting him to do more reps? Shedeur says all the right things to a degree, like when he was saying like he's not going to send his jersey to his dad because he knows what he expects from him. That means the kid's hungry. He's going to work harder, and I respect the hell out of that. Why are they not rewarding him with Team 1 reps? It doesn't make sense to me. It really does not. Because the Browns have everything they need to compete at this point. Yeah, their receiver room, I don't love it, but they can get by. Their defense is good. They're the hardest division in football, absolutely, but they're not tanking. It'd be crazy for them to try to get a high draft pick to draft another quarterback after wasting 2 picks the year before on 2 different quarterbacks. So why not push your chips in a little bit and see what you've got? It just doesn't make sense. And I think this is why the Browns are the Browns. They don't look like they want to compete. They don't want to take those gambles. They don't want to take those chances. This is a perfect time to take that chance. You have nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing. You have signed Garrett to a long-term contract. You have nothing to lose. Throw him out there. Let's see what he's got. But that's just what I think, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments down below. Am I way off base here, or do you guys agree that, hey, some of these guys should be getting opportunities? Let me know down in the comments down below. Make sure you hit a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And until the next one, have a good one.